Anyone remember Tim Lincecum? No? Nobody? Just... Oh, okay, we got one guy. Nah, I'm joking, of course. I know most of you probably remember him. He hasn't even been out of baseball that long, but it definitely feels like it's been a long time. And I think in some ways it has been a long time, or at least a long time since the dominant all-star version of Tim Lincecum. And I'll be really honest with you, I'm going to try really hard not to make my man crush too obvious in this video. The guy was just my favorite pitcher. He was cool and relatable and average looking, but also completely unaverage in so many ways. Some may say even a little freakish. Anyways, I was snooping around the internet to see if the baseball community was still thinking about him, and I came across this post on Reddit. Mostly it was just speculation as to why he stopped being so good. There was some talk about his hips turning to cottage cheese and his hair being the key to his success. Who knows, man? All I know is that I really miss the guy, and I want to explore how good he actually was at the height of his career. So come with me, we'll take a little trip down memory lane. Hey guys, this is a series that I'm calling Halfway to Cooperstown, dedicated to remembering the players who looked like they were on their way to the Hall of Fame, but never quite made it for whatever reason. This episode, of course, we're going to be focusing on Tim Lincecum, and the last news that I remember was that Tim signed a minor league deal with the Rangers in 2018 and went full Jake Gyllenhaal for Southpaw. As a fan, I was excited. It sort of looked like maybe he was going to get to the major leagues again after that very, very bad stint with the Angels, which was hard to watch. But unfortunately, I think that was just wishful thinking on my part. Now, Lincecum pitched just over 12 innings with the Rangers in AAA before they released him, and I'll just say this. Whoever those minor leaguers were, they knocked him around pretty good. But okay, let's not get sidetracked by the bad stuff. How good was Tim Lincecum's best? To answer this, we're going to need to start from the beginning. Well, kind of the beginning. Although he pitched really well in high school, Tim really began to be noticed heavily from 2004 to 2006 during his time at the University of Washington. It was here that the freak became the freak. He truly had a freakishly good arm, which was even more freakish coming from a 165-pound teenager. And not only was his nickname accurate on the field, but it was also reflected in his stats. Tim struck out nearly 500 batters in 341 innings pitched at the University of Washington. He went 30-13 in that time, and before long, Tim was pitching in the Giants organization, where he pretty much duplicated the success he made in college. He went from eating ramen noodles and pitching to teenagers in the Pac-12 conference to pitching to professionals in the major leagues in just a year's time. And not only were they professionals, they were the 2007 Phillies, who consisted of Jimmy Rollins, Shane Victorino, Chase Utley, and Ryan Howard, among others. This is the same group that ended up winning a championship just a year later. And that's right, Tim made his debut on May 6, 2007, against the Phillies. And long story short, it didn't go too well for our guy Timmy. He did strike out 5, including this sweet strikeout of Chase Utley, which was pretty cool, but he also gave up 5 runs and 5 walks in just 4 1/3. But all in all, Tim really put together a pretty solid rookie year. His numbers weren't fantastic or anything, but they were promising. He had potential, and how much potential remained to be seen. Okay, so fast forward a year. We're in 2008, a year in which Lincecum posted a 2.62 ERA and led the league in strikeouts, fielding independent pitching, win-loss percentage, and ERA+, or park-adjusted ERA. Not only that, but he also won his first Cy Young Award at 24 years old. And to put that into a little bit of perspective, out of the 105 pitchers to ever win the award since 1956, Lincecum is tied for the 4th youngest behind names like Kershaw and Dwight Gooden and Vida Blue. Yeah, that's pretty legitness. The next year, Lincecum won his 2nd Cy Young and also led the NL in strikeouts and FIP for the 2nd time in a row. He went 15-7, and out of those 7 games that he lost, in 6 of them, Lincecum received 2 or less runs of support. And he also pitched 4 complete games that year, with 2 of them being shutouts. If you take a look at Tim Lincecum's 2009 numbers, it's almost like the guy copied and pasted them from the year before. Nothing like Chris Davis's .247 4 times in a row batting average, but still pretty crazy. And as a fan during this time, I remember him being so fucking cool. Tim was sort of like that quiet kid in school that everyone was cool with, but didn't really know too well. And I know I'm not the only one to go out in the backyard and try and copy his pitching motion, but my changeup was trash, which was why I never played beyond Little League, but Tim's was pretty good. No, not even pretty good. It was elite. It dropped off the table and hitters just could not seem to lay off of it. In this 2009 article, it talks a little bit about how Lincecum's changeup was rated the best changeup in baseball that year at 5.29 runs above average per 100 pitches. Basically, that means that every 18 changeups that he throws, he keeps one more run off the board than the average pitcher. And that's insane, considering that he most likely threw 18 changeups a game if he threw over 80 pitches per start that year. My point is, the guy was killing it. The fastball, the changeup, that tight 12-6 that he threw, and it all came from a guy who was average in every respect. He wasn't tall or big or ripped, or at least not yet. And if you ask me, I think Tim is responsible for a whole generation of young pitchers who saw a little bit of themselves in him. He was inspiring. He represented something that transcended baseball. Oh boy, I'm probably making it too obvious. Okay, back to the numbers. To better understand how good the height of Lincecum's career was from a historical perspective, I graphed the strikeouts by an individual pitcher in every season since 1900. The black line is the average number of strikeouts per season. The orange dots are Tim's best seasons in the major leagues, with the two at the top being his Cy Young seasons. And I would say that those Cy Young seasons were pretty historically significant. Out of 9,745 pitchers who have ever pitched in the major leagues at the time of this video, just 46 of them have struck out 260 or more in a season. And Tim did it twice. Not only did he do it twice, but he did it in less time. Lincecum didn't need 275 or 300 innings like Bob Gibson, Steve Carlton, Tom Seaver, or even Bob Feller, who all put up similar strikeout numbers in some of their seasons. But there's something else that is also really important to remember. This generation of baseball is different. We're not in the days of pitchers completing 10 games a year and throwing 150 pitches per start. And whether you agree with it or not, teams are more protective of their pitchers. I would argue that it's difficult to strike out 260 hitters in a season regardless of what era you happen to play in. But the level of difficulty is higher these days due to teams limiting the amount of innings a pitcher can go. And this is precisely why pitchers like Lincecum, Scherzer, Sale, Kershaw are so rare. They achieve more with less. But I know, I can hear you screaming at me, strikeouts aren't everything, and I totally get it. There's a lot of other factors that are involved in evaluating how good a pitcher is, which happens to bring me to my next point, the playoffs. That's right, who can forget that Giants dynasty that won 3 championships in like 5 years? Those teams were pretty legit. You had Mr. Perfect Game Matt Cain, and you had Big Panda, Pablo Sandoval at third, and of course Crawford at short, Hunter Pence, a young Joe Panic. You can't forget about Posey. Oh, and you also can't forget about 2 studs coming out of the bullpen with Sergio Romo and Brian Wilson. Who remembers that crazy guy? It doesn't take a baseball genius to know that you don't win 1 World Series by accident, let alone 3. They were truly great, and Lincecum was no exception. Besides having a 2.40 playoff career ERA, Lincecum went 2-0 in the 2010 World Series, not to mention 4-1 in that entire playoffs that year. Some of the highlights include a dominating performance against the Braves in Game 1 of the 2010 NLDS, where he pitched a complete game shutout and struck out 14 and allowed just 2 hits. And in another lengthy performance where he went 8 innings and struck out 10, which sealed the deal for the Giants' first World Series championship since Willie Mays was there in 1954. But as the old saying goes, all good things must come to an end. And in Lincecum's case, they ended gradually. The velocity on his fastball justified a lot of his other pitches, including his best pitch, his changeup, and it basically decreased each year, and he just didn't look the same. There are a few theories as to why this happened. The most popular seems to be his violent delivery, the same delivery that he learned from his dad, the same delivery that helped him win 2 Cy Young Awards and strike out over 1,700 batters in his career, and the same delivery that may have took a toll on his body, and some say that it was only a matter of time before it caught up to him. After facing obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, Watching Tim pitch just became sad and cringy, not entertaining. He went from an average-looking guy with freakish abilities to an average-looking guy with below-average abilities and less cool hair. And at some point, I guess you just have to call it quits, and maybe Tim didn't want to play anymore, who knows? Maybe he was okay with the run that he had. He's a pretty humble guy, and it was pretty well documented how much he didn't like the fame and the lifestyle that it brought. Tim made a Twitter account back in 2012 and only tweeted about 8 times, but they were the nicest and most normal and down-to-earth things that you'll hear from any big-time athlete. When it's all said and done, Tim walked away with a lot. He was one of 35 pitchers to throw at least 2 no-hitters, both against the Padres. Yeah, that's right, Padres fans, you thought I forgot about those, didn't you? He earned 2 Cy Young Awards and 3 World Series rings, and although it was short, Tim accomplished more things than most guys have or ever will. And since he most likely won't be going to Cooperstown, his legacy will have to live on through his accolades. And it's also up to baseball fans like you and me to keep this small corner of baseball history alive and well. Thanks for watching, everyone. I would really appreciate some feedback, and also let me know if there's a player out there that you'd like me to make a video on. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Or to re-record your personal greeting, press 2.
Hey, this is the Freak. I'm not on my desk right now. No. Hey, this is the Franchise. Franchise? There we go. Hey, this is the Freaky Franchise here. Big time Timmy Jim's office here. No one even calls me that. Hi, this is Tim Lincecum. If you leave your name, number, and a short message, I'll be sure to
Hey, big time Timmy Jim, what's up?
If you're unhappy with your greeting,
Plus this.